Hello, my name is François Vels and I am the co-founder of qatent. In this video, I'm going to show you a tour of the service. As of March 2024, I will update this video on a regular basis. This video has chapters, so feel free to skip to your topic of interest. This is the page for claims drafting. We have several functions encoded there. We detect antecedents problems, if any. We check for profanity check, that words that are not really advisable, and also dependency checks. For example, you can see here, antecedents is incorrect. I should have used undefined, so I can correct that immediately. And also, fully is not really advisable. I'm going to remove that. Same here, and also important is not advisable. I can check again if the analysis still okay. Yes, and then I have no longer issues in my claim, so I can pursue with generations. So with qatent, you have the ability to guide the generation depending on CPC classes. As you can see, I have my claims here, and the different classifiers that we are using have defined that these different CPC classes are associated with these claims. But let's say you work in mechatronics, so you have a little bit of mechanics and also electronics. You have the ability to search and add some more CPC classes. For example, I can choose randomly here. In this example, I had a CPC class. What it's going to do is going to add the different lexicons associated with the CPC class in addition to those that have been previously displayed. So if I want to do mechatronics, I can load mechanics and electronics CPC classes. If I do synthetic biology, I can load computer science and biology. So talking about the relationship between terms, we have something that enable a deep dive in the relationship between terms. So I'm going to click here on the small grid icon. And what it's going to do is going to open a very deep dive into the relationship. So these are claims features. And what I can do here, if you see, so this is a symmetrical matrix. So for example, if I want to see the relationship between displaying and scroll command, you see, if I click here, I can define several types of relationship. So either an equivalent, either an hyponym relationship or an hyperonym, an inclusion in one direction or the other direction, a control, A controls B, or A is controlled by B, or B interact with B. This table is pre-filled by automatic computations, but you have the ability to change these things on the way you like, and it's going to have an impact on the support sections, that is the textual translations of these relationships, and these paragraphs will be added under your control to the specification, the detailed description. It will allow you to have a deep dive into the relationship between terms. Now let's talk about reference numerals and the management of reference numerals. As you know, this is very time-consuming, extremely repetitive, and very burdensome. So the idea is we try to automate as much as possible these things. So you can see here, I'm going to toggle on all terms. It's going to be reflected left on the claims. And then I have here some overlaps because instructions and first instructions do overlap. What I'm going to do is to unselect this one to solve the collision and handle the same cases here. And later on, I can choose whether I want to propagate these reference numerals to the entire detailed description. So you have several options in there. You can add a new term in the list. For example, if scrollable here has not been defined with own reference numerals, I can add this to the list. It's going to be appended here, and I can drag and drop in the order I like, and it's going to be renumbered automatically on the left. I can reset the list if I want, just to start from all over again. I can remove the untoggled terms from the list. I can show the list in total. It's empty here because nothing is selected here. Show the list. And this list will be re-included in the generated specification in the outliner view. Okay, I can also analyze claims to find a relationship between selected terms. And also I can analyze claims to find all terms and relations. The same way you can manage your reference numerals in your claims, you can import and manage the invention disclosure in itself. So you can see here in green, I can toggle all terms from invention disclosure is going to analyze this and toggle on for all terms and for the claims. And the question is now, what is the relationship between those two silos? So if I click here on the grid, I will be able to dive into the relationship between claims and invention disclosure. So I can have the same kind of relationship between those things in order to be able to build what we call textual bridges. For example, if your invention discussing in the claims a car and here is a vehicle, and then you can establish that the car is a type of vehicle, and this will be amended imported in the detailed description so that you can have a link between your invention disclosure and the claims whenever you need to recopy your invention disclosure or parts of it in the detailed description. As a practitioner, I usually have a mail of my client saying, okay, your draft is fine, each and every aspect of the draft is covered, but sometimes you are not free to do so, or you want to be on the safe side, and it's better to have a partial recopy of the invention disclosure in the application generated and post-edited and filed. So this is the way here to manage these things. Okay, so generation has been launched, and we will see progressively the different sections appearing. So the green marks shows it's completed, so we can start editing or changing things. And for the pending ones, the spinning wheels, it's still under computation. It goes really fast. In about 1 or 2 or 3 minutes, the computation is complete, and then you can edit and post-edit the computation. So let's review the different sections one by one. Okay, so the title is computed for the claims. If I want to see alternatives, I can click here on the yellow bulb and see some other suggestions on the right panel. And for example, maybe I don't want to have these categories, but something which is more short because I want something more detectable, less detectable, let's say, or shorter. And then I can click on the link, and you see it's swapped automatically, switched on the left panel. Done. Technical fields. So we have a set of classifiers based on the claims, and we define different CPC classes. So you can see here I have alternatives like the long version and the short version. The long version, if I choose this one, just add CPC classes, official titles coming from the CPC classification. It's not really our job because we are not examiners, so it's okay for me here. The background section, we are going to integrate with Questel databases. So we are going to have the full databases underlying here. For the moment, we have the 10 last years of the EPO, of the US PTO, and of the Chinese EPO. And of course, you can also change the background section here. I can show one more, choose another one. Let's say this one is good, replace background, and it's switched on the left. The problem statement, it's not really my practice as a practitioner. I don't like this because this is the initial technical problem. When some clients want to have the section, so here it is. This is the solution solving the problems raised in the claims. So this is computed by an AI. Personally, I don't use that at all because only the objective technical problem matters, at least in Europe. So I'm going to deactivate the section. And as you can see, it's loaded here in the inactive section. So I can restore this section later on if I want. But the next section, it will remember that I don't want to see this section never, ever again. So my practice is to create a summary. And as you know, because the abstract is not part of the application as filed, so my practice is to recopy this abstract here. The abstract is computed from the claims as well. So I click on the yellow bulb and I have alternatives here. So I can choose, for example, this one and replace the abstract, or I can choose another one that you like here and it's changed left. And of course, I can go in there and change anything I want once computation is complete. Another aspect of my practice is that I like to include technical effects and advantages. So advantages in the US meaning and technical effects in the European meaning. We worked a lot on this feature with prompts, and not only with prompts, with building extensive libraries of technical effects. We are analyzing the prosecution data because, as you know, this is mostly where technical effects are discussed in official communications, not that much into initial patent filings. So what you have here is that you have for each claim, you have different sets of advantages. So for example, you have here the recopy of claim 1 here, and then I have one advantage, second advantage. We have also global advantages here, and then we have for additional characteristics, we recopy the claim 2, and then we have one advantage, second advantage, etc. And we continue so forth in the claim tree. And then for each additional characteristics, you have potential candidates for technical effects. Of course, if you don't like one, you can trash it very easily. And if you want to change that, you also can amend those texts. Generation of drawings, I will talk to that in a specific chapter. Let's talk about the detailed description. So of course, what you can do here is to have your own detailed description and make it coexist where what I call here a synthetic patent, which is an accumulation stacking different claims variants which provide fallbacks during prosecution, because we inject a lot of new words that can be useful for amending your claims during examination. So the first thing we propose is to have definitions. Definitions, we computed definitions from the Wikipedia scientific part, and also the NIST, National Institute for Standards in the US, and also from the patent corpus, the patent database itself, because many patent applicants file their own definitions, so it can be really useful to have those. So we extracted those, ranked, and then proposed that to you back. It covers essential features, but not only, also including non-essential features. So you may not be interested in non-essential features, so you have the ability to delete what you do not need. But sometimes it can add a lot of new words that can be very useful, and providing, you see, other relevant keywords. What we are going to do next is to intertwine these definitions in claims in the claim tree. So for example, input, I open the parentheses and recopy the definition. At least in Europe, we have not that often objection for support for this type of re-inclusion of content. So it's not a big deal, but it's going to be more useful when you have the same principle but applied to synonyms. So in this case, I'm not going to replace input by its definition, but include some words that are coming from the ontology. Ontology is a very important part of what we are doing because, of course, this is something that is not that well handled in large language models, and we built our own proprietary ontology, and we are further working on sophisticating it. So in this ontology, you have the hyponyms, that are words that are more specific, words that are more generic, also definitions and terminology, trends in terminology. So you can see here we have indications whether it's completely obsolete or a recent practice. In the corpus, we have the source of the definition here coming from WordNet, the source coming from our own database, or Wikipedia or NIST wherein applicable. And here you can see we have the different synonyms more generic words, hyperonyms, or more specific words, that is hyponyms. And of course, you can change that. It's very useful for intermediate generalizations, as we will see now. So the next step after synonyms enhanced patent claims is intermediate generalization. And in this case, we are going to intertwine not only the synonyms, but hyponyms and hyperonyms. This module is going to be interactive very soon so that you can level up some words while you level down some words. When you're happy with the individual combinations, you can snapshot and append the paragraph in your patent application. It is very useful for prosecution later on. Then we have a bunch of others, modules, generation modules. I'm adding constantly new ones and also checking quality of those. It's a mix of rule-based and large language models prompts. So, for example, claims categories just reminds you to add the good words if you need to change categories later on. And also, we're working a lot on chemistry and biology to add those claims categories, which, as you know, there's many of them. We have then short on claims. LLMs are very good for summarizing things. You have other ways to try to tentatively delete essential features to see if the shortcut still works and it's not in the end a really essential feature. And so this is driven by an AI, and it tries to delete some features and see what's going on in the semantic level. We have incentives to combine, which can be very tricky to handle. We have a lot of things about boilerplates, which are recurrent paragraphs. Also triggered, for example, by the presence of keywords in your claim sets, or just recurrent paragraphs. For example, for the US, I have Alice versus TSL. I have always my paragraph. I will talk to that later on. Enabling feature is something which is based on prompts, and it checks whether you have all your different features and what they do. The reference numeral list, I have nothing in there because I didn't activate that. I will show that in a different chapter, how you manage reference numerals. And also the figure description, which is a big piece, and also we'll talk about that in a different chapter. Then you find your claims as entered, the abstract, those different options you have. And now talk about the different options that we have for amending and post-editing your application. So let's say I take a paragraph here and I'm not quite satisfied with this paragraph. So I'm going to jump into the right panel here. So I have term list is for reference numerals. Alternatives is when you click on the yellow bulb as shown. The validation is, I will talk to that in a minute. It's about the different proofreading options. We are adding a lot of them at the moment, like quality of support, number of occurrences compared to compare the bijection between detailed description and claims, and also, for example, to check unclaimed matter. The variants, I've already talked about that, and the paraphrasing options. So here you find different predefined prompts. So I have selected my text here on the left, and what I want is to split those sentences into shorter ones because it's better for machine translation downwards. And so you see here it's splitted in several sentences, and if I want to take and accept this text, I can put it on the left. You have the option to clone the section, so you can keep your original wording and also get new ones. Then you have search options. We have a local database that we are going to improve with the integration of Questel. You also have a legal database for case law. So for example, I am going to search for medical. As you can see, you can choose whether it's EP, US, or China by years, and you get information about that. You can access the abstract, the claims in full text, and also the description. And you can choose that as a background art, as your closest prior art. We'll talk about that in the selected chapter. You have the ability to store your own text. When I was talking about Alice versus TSL, I use my own, and very often my colleagues add slightly different versions, sometimes better ones. So it's a way, very simple way to share your snippets or recurrent paragraphs amongst your colleagues. And also we have an advanced markup system because the generated text is also a tool for communications and very fast exchange communications vector for with your inventor or your colleagues. So you have the way to you have ways to color and amend or the different parts of the application. You also have the opportunity to insert comments into your patent applications, which will be removed at export. Now I will open a new project and I'm going to generate from Invention Disclosure. You can generate from Invention Disclosure and or claims. If you provide claims that do supersede the generation of claim trees proposed by the system. So here in the example, I'm going to upload a PDF which is 9 pages long, and I'm going to select that. The system is going to import and digest the system, recognize the different parts in there. So we have classifiers that detect, for example, which is part of prior art, which relates to advantages, which part relates to prototype claims, if any, some other sections, and the system will propose several claim trees, amongst which you can choose the better starting point. You can further edit the claim tree and then launch generation. It usually takes some minutes. It generates between 5 up to 10 claim trees. It usually goes very fast. So you can see here different generated claim trees. So I got first one here, a second one here, another one, another one, another one, and so forth. So let's say I'm satisfied with this one. I'm going to click here, insert into the claims editor, and you see left, boom, it's replaced. So the analysis will start as usual. It will detect dependency errors, antecedents errors, profanity errors. We have some here, most. We have some issue here for checking claims number. Most is inaccurate. So let's say I can change that and edit that. And when I'm satisfied, I can click on Generate Patent Applications, and then I will find my usual workflow. Now let's talk about figures. So I imported a PDF, a preprint into the systems. The system proposed some claim trees as candidates for generation. And also the system has extracted different figures that you can see here out of the PDF. I can have a deeper look at it. And also I can edit the different titles of the figures. So I can give the figure a name. And more importantly, I can say to the system to which claims it relates. So let's say it relates to claim 2 and 8. And I can add a few description if I want. And the thing is, when you indicate these claims numbers to the system, we use an LVLM. It's called for Large Vision Language Model. It's a combination of of computer vision with OCR and text generation tools. And when we indicate the relationship to the claims, we force the system to compute an annotation which takes the vocabulary contained in the claims and associated part of the description. So this makes the system works really well. I can do that for the different figures I have. And then I got in the description an automatic annotation of the different figures. It's very useful because you have image recognition, that is enumeration of the different objects present in the drawings, and also we try to have some paragraph discussing the interaction between those objects. And this is a topic we are continuously working on. This is a very time-consuming task, as you know, to annotate figures. So we put a lot of energy and efforts into this field. Qatent generates in English, in Chinese, in French, and in German. For the short term, you have export options here. For example, if I have generated in English, I can export the text in Chinese, in German, in French, Spanish, Portuguese, and very short term, we will offer 10 PCT languages. But that can be very useful because if you pursue an exclusive right in one territory, you can use early publications or defensive publishing in the countries you're not pursuing an exclusive right. Also, you can internationalize your different buttons. Here, if I choose, for example, a Chinese buttons, then I have my Chinese content in there. So there is an embedded product guide. This is on your landing page. You have this button tutorial. You can find some video explanations and also the product guide. This is a Google document that covers all topics, and I update and will update this document regularly.